Hey everyone, Sir Jellybean here. We're back with another CallToArms GatesOfHell Ostfront tutorial/guide, and this time we're talking half-tracks and armoured cars for Germany. So, these don't get used as much by a lot of players, but there are some standout units, especially in the armoured cars, that can really supplement your force and be quite useful, and some are just absolutely awful. I'm just going to go through their inventories and what use they have. But first we'll just talk about the base of them. So half-tracks are obviously more for transportation of infantry and supporting mechanised companies. And armoured cars, even though useful in the military groups, they're not really frontline units. Obviously things like your Pumas were reconnaissance units, but your armoured cars like your Sd.Kfz 231 stuff, they were more for domestic use, like against partisans and helping in the occupied territories. They could be used for reconnaissance and support, but an armoured car is never going to replace a Panzer or a Tiger. But they do have the place in the game still because of high mobility and kind of cheaper cost against tanks, especially in population cap for you in Conquest. So we'll start at the bottom down here, and we've got the Kfz 13 with its MG34 should I say. This is obviously a light little vehicle. It's got your MG34, but it is belt fed, so you've got that 250 round belt. It's got a fair bit of ammo. It's light, it's 8 armour, same as a half track. It's open top, it's 2 crew, it's 70 speed. I wouldn't personally recommend bringing this, but if at the start of the game, if you've not got many options and you've got this unmarked, it can bring you a bit of machine gun. It's got a shield, but it's only going to survive small arms. Anti-tank rifles, which are prevalent in Conquest, will tear through it. So it's definitely something I'd miss, but it can be a fun little thing. But it is pretty nippy at 70 speed, so it has that. Next we have the Sd.Kfz 2512, which is 8 cm, so it's the mortar half track. Now this thing's actually quite good. 8 armour. And open topped is its weakness. Remember, it's 53 speed, so it's nippy. It's got the 8 cm mortar with 50 high explosive rounds and 15 smoke rounds, so it carries a lot of ammo. And then it's got that rear belt fed machine gun to protect you, so this is quite good if you're doing a lot of armour and mechanised forces. If you want to bring some mortars but you don't want to babysit them as much, bring 2 of these and just move them up as a team. You've obviously got the explosive power, but the smoke's the main thing. You can easily use these to smoke out of position. And infantry can move up, so it is quite a good support unit, but just remember, quite vulnerable. Then you've got the Sd.Kfz 251/1, and this is your standard half track for transporting infantry. Obviously, minus the crew, you can carry 9 more men, so it can carry a full squad up pretty much. It's light at 8 armour, it's open topped, 53 speed again, but you've got that 250 round belt machine gun at the front and a 51 at the back, so it's quite good for infantry support. Where they really excel is when you're on defence, and let's say you've got 3 waves deployed and the enemy's attacking, you bring your 4th wave in, especially your mechanised infantry in these, they'll quickly get up to objectives, a lot quicker than infantry on foot, but they're also good for filling in gaps, and the half track's pretty good at killing infantry, so it's great for that. And when they're assaulting, the best thing to do is get the men out, split the squad into 2 side by side with the half track and walk them up. And this thing, obviously, anti-tank rifles and bazookas will take it out, but small arms don't do much to it, so it's quite good for something that can stand there and kill infantry, sometimes even take on maximum emplacements. So it's great for a little mechanised company, and some of your elite German units will come with half tracks anyway, so that's pretty cool. You've got the Sd.Kfz 250/3, which is the command half track. No, obviously in this case it's got a tankman in it, but that's what the officer comes in, so you get that reconnaissance boost when he's using his binoculars out of it. It's got a belt fed machine gun, but unless you want to bring the officer in it, it's basically pointless to bring. But I think in Conquest Enhanced, if you use that mod, you need one of these to be able to use the minimap. But it does look pretty cool, but if you want to do that kind of have your officer in a half track, there's always that option, but I'd avoid it. It's open topped again, and its armor's between 8 and 10, but it's still very vulnerable. AT rifles will tear through it. You've got the Sd.Kfz 250/11, which is similar to your other half track. It's got 60 speed, so it's a little bit upgraded from the other one. But the main thing is it's got that 2.8 cm anti-tank gun, so it does have some anti-tank firepower. It's open topped and light. I personally wouldn't bring this. If you want anti-tank, there's far better options in the armoured cars, but it does look pretty cool. But it's something if you kind of want to supplement half tracks with more kind of half tracks, but I'd give that a miss. Then we've got the Sd.Kfz 250/9. This thing's a bit of an oddball now. It's got a pretty good autocannon, comes with 70 armour piercing rounds, 30 APCR, 120 high X. It's got pretty good fire rate. It's got the MG34 with a 150 round belt. But it's a half track. It's got the same armour, same speed as the previous half track, but it's open topped as well. And there's better armoured cars with autocannons that have better armour, also have better, they're completely enclosed, should I say. And there's other faster options as well. So it's not really something I'd use, but if you want to bring a a half track with an autocannon. Obviously, this is your choice, but like I say, further down the line, there's far better options. And there's the Sd.Kfz 222 Ausf A, which is kind of one of the first like armoured cars you'll lock. This has got similar setup, 60 armour piercing rounds, 20 APCR, and 90 high X. But what's the bigger difference between these other things? It's got smoke. Glorious smoke. It can deploy smoke. Now, it won't deploy. Yeah, that's strange. But I think you literally have to get the guys can go out and chuck the smoke, but it does, gives you a little bit more of an advantage. It's also carrying satchel charges, which is nice. But it's not a bad little support vehicle. I've used it at the start of the game. It's got that 2cm autocannon, pretty good rate of fire, and it's obviously got that MG34 coaxial MG. I think it's got a dual drum on it. But its armour's only between 6 and 15, so it's very light. But speed, 70. So you get, it's a very nippy armoured car. So it's great as like a little response unit. You can use that to whip around on your defensive lines. It's not a bad vehicle. So I do quite like that. It's cheap manpower and population cap wise. I can't remember the exact thing, but they are very cheap. You can get quite a few armoured cars for one tank, so it is good. This thing I hate. I'm going to tell you why. Now, the armour's not too bad. Between 5 and 26, it's got a bit. Speed 72. It's pretty nippy. It's the weapon. It's very strange. It's a 2.5cm, but it's not a proper autocannon. It fires like a normal kind of cannon, but 2.5cm. It doesn't have that good penetration or fire rate, and it's only armed with armor piercing rounds, no high X. Now you do get that MG34 coaxial MG, but it just doesn't fit in the army well. And like, why have a 2.5cm cannon when there's far better options for anti-tank? You're better off just having the 2cm autocannon. At least that has some speed. So yeah, I completely avoid this Pz.Sp.Wg or the P204F. And it looks awful. I'm sorry, it's an awful looking thing. This thing should have never been made. Just don't use it. I've never had any luck with it, but I just think it's not very good. The gun just doesn't work well with it, especially with an armoured car. You're better off with something with an autocannon, personally. Then there's the Sd.Kfz 221 double drum. This is a very light, one of the first armoured cars you get. It's literally like something you can kind of see for anti-partisan duties and anti-resistance. It's got between 6 and 15 armour. It's 80 speed though, so it's definitely a nippy thing. It's not bad. It's good for like just mowing down infantry, but there's no autocannon. You can't really deal with emplacements or anti-tank, any armour very well. But it's one of your first things you can unlock, so it is cheap and kind of, you can bring it with infantry early war, but apart from that, I wouldn't use it. Something to avoid. The Sd.Kfz 231 I do like, and it is pretty good. It's obviously fully enclosed, which is good. Its armour is between 5.5 and 14.5, but it's 85 speed. Now it carries, sorry, I've got to put that down. It carries 70 armour piercing rounds, 30 APCR, 70 HE, and it's also got a 150 round drum belt, should I say. I really like this vehicle. It's really fast. It's pretty cool looking as well. Very kind of, don't know, it's got a very good look to it. But I find these are always really good early war. And the 2cm autocannon can deal with pretty much all the Russian tanks up to the T-34s. So not the T-34 obviously, but like the BT-7s, the Su-76s, all those kind of things this can deal with. And because of its high speed, you can use it for flanks and counter-attacking and response on defence. So a very good one. Definitely use that if you like armoured cars. Then we get onto the Puma and its variant. So the actual first Puma is this. It's the Sd.Kfz 231/2 5cm. So it's got between 5 and 30 armour, 85 speed. Obviously it's got smoke. Proper smoke launchers as well, which is fantastic. You don't get them on many armoured cars. And it's very nippy. Now this was actually in real life was a reconnaissance vehicle, had really good optics. It doesn't get any reconnaissance bonus in game, but that 5cm is the same one that's on the Panzer III, can't remember which variant, but it's quite a powerful gun. It's got the 150 round belt fed, and obviously you've got smoke. It comes with 28 armor piercing, 8 high explosive, 22 high explosive, and 4 armor piercing composite ridges. So this thing can actually deal with some medium tanks. I've even taken on T-34s from the side and rear with it. And it's very nippy. It's a very good armoured car. Fantastic Puma. Then there's this one, the Sd.Kfz 234/1. It's got the 2cm. It's basically the Puma, but with a 2cm. It's a little bit slower, but it carries 90 armor piercing, 28 PCR, 130 HE. Good fire rate, actually very fast fire rate, and the machine gun's pretty good. The only bad thing, open tops, which I don't like. But it's still very nippy and very useful. But it doesn't come with any smoke, unfortunately, which is a shame. And there's the Sd.Kfz 234/3. Now this is on with the glorious 7.5cm gun, but short barreled. This is very powerful, and it's got 22 HE heat. It's got 5 smoke rounds and 22 high explosive. It's got smoke rounds, people. Smoke. Something that doesn't get on many German vehicles. So it's actually got good anti-infantry capabilities. It's got a 50-round drum, standard belt drum rounds on it. And the high X is really powerful, does a lot of damage. And the smoke rounds, if we can load them in. Is it loading smoke? No, I want smoke, sorry. No, let's try and get them. Let's just fire one of the smoke rounds off. As you can see, those smoke launchers, they're being so more effective than the smoke that drops out of tanks. And as you can see, the smoke round's actually pretty powerful. So this is really good support unit for infantry. And like I say, apart from the first, which is 85 speed, these are all 80 speed, but really fast. Really good acceleration, really responsive. And it's got between 5 and 30 armour. And then we get onto my favourite personally, the Sd.Kfz 234/4. It's got that 7.5cm pack 40. It's the exact same one, that's the anti-tank gun, so it gets that 150mm max penetration. It's got 80 speed, between 5 and 30 armour. Comes with 15 armour piercing, armour piercing high explosive, 15 high explosive, 5 heat. And it obviously has that 50-round machine gun. But it's very powerful. This thing, in real life, eventually, they just, instead of going for reconnaissance, most Pumas and stuff, or any others, were outfitted like this by the end of the war, and basically became mobile tank hunters. It will take on T-34s, I've taken out KDs with it. It's pretty cheap, all the Puma things are quite cheap, and points-wise, they don't take up too many. I can't remember the exact points in Conquest, it might change, but they are good, and this thing's a fantastic rear line unit. You get a gap where T-34's flanked you, quickly roll it up, find out where they are, and as you can see, it's really mobile, it turns on a dime, it's absolutely rapid, so you can easily spin round and blast. You don't get that from most tanks, it's got such good mobility, and that's the main thing. And even when tanks are aiming at you, sometimes you can actually outrun the turrets, which is really good. So yeah, armoured cars, they are... Oh, he's following him. They are overlooked, but there is some really good uses of them. There's some to definitely avoid, but I do like the Puma series. And the half tracks, if you use them well with infantry, can be really, really effective. Anyway, that wraps it up. Hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic night.